Rebecca Dingwell is a writer and editor who spends so much time playing PlayStation 5, and she's here to tell us why video games are good for love. I am curious about this because my husband's a gamer, Rebecca, so please share this.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying all the games I'm going to talk about today are cooperative games or co-op. So the important thing about these is you're not playing against each other. You're playing
Mm-hmm.
together.
Oh, on the
And
same
for me,
team.
that's
Okay.
important. If you're competitive like me, I can get like to be a little bit of a jerk sometimes when I'm playing against
Are
Same.
you
somebody.
the sore winner
And
and the sore loser, Rebecca?
yeah, I'm 100% both. So things like Mario Party, Smash Brothers, kind of the typical like party games and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily somebody you want to be playing that with. Um, but the reason I like cooperative games and the reason I like playing them with my spouse in particular, among other people, is I think it's just a more interactive way to spend time together, especially this time of year. You know, it's cold out. You're not necessarily going out and doing all the things you like to do when the weather is a bit nicer. So it can get a little bit monotonous, right? There are only so many movie nights you can have at home
Mm-hmm.
without it getting boring, in my opinion, anyway. So I think that what the video games do is they kind of allow you to interact with each other on a bit of a different level. And in a lot of these games, you're kind of constantly communicating. So I think that they have that benefit to it, that it's a little bit more of a bonding experience than the passive experience of watching a show or a movie together, sort of
Right.
thing. I have a few that I've played with my husband recently that I'm gonna suggest. So the first one, and I'm gonna go kind of from easiest gameplay to hardest gameplay. So the first one I'm gonna recommend is a game called Spiritfarer, and the developer puts it really well. They call it a cozy management game about dying. So even though death is kind of a central theme of the game, it's really sweet and really bittersweet, I guess. And when I say cozy game, I'm talking about if you like things like Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, that sort of what we mean when we're talking about cozy games. Like they're sort of little fetch quests, or you're building homes, you have a little neighborhood. There's no fear of like your avatar getting killed. There's no combat is not the name of the game here. So Spiritfarer, you play as a character called Stella, and she is basically taking over as the Spiritfarer, which is pretty much a guardian or a psychopomp that is guiding people kind of through almost a limbo or purgatory type situation to the afterlife. So you build up your ship, you and you gather people. The I guess the caricatures are they portray themselves as animals in the game. That's kind of how their soul reflects when you find them. But you make food for them. You create little cabins, like their rooms. You do little quests for them until they're ready to cross over. And the story is really good and the gameplay is very simple. Now if you have a player two in this game, and another thing, all the games I'm going to be talking about you can play solo or co-op. So if you don't have anybody in your life you can play with right now, you can still play. So if you
Okay.
play co-op, player two is going to be Daffodil, that's Stella's cat, which is really cute. And my husband jokingly talks about co-op games like this. He says this is a give your little brother a controller kind of game, because the co-op
Right.
doesn't add a whole lot to the gameplay. It's just sort of it's more for flavor. Like player two can do things and interact with most things that player one can, but it doesn't really change the outcome or change the tone of the game at all. It's just kind of an
It's
option.
like the
So that's
co-pilot
really
position,
good.
kind of, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. So
Okay.
that's good, especially if you have maybe one person in a relationship that's more of a gamer and than the other, and
Yep.
it can kind of, or if you're just doing it for a quality time thing, sort of like
Yeah.
we were. But I really love this game. I think the story is really beautiful, and the characters are lovely. You go through all these adventures, and the characters all go through their character arcs. Like I said, death is something that comes up. Stella in life was it's implied that she was a hospice nurse. So that's something that is talked about and dealt with. So if that's something that might make you uncomfortable or upset, then maybe look up content warnings for that one. But overall, it's a really beautiful game and it's not difficult to play. So that's definitely like the top one on my list. If you're looking to get into gaming and you're not sure where to start, that's a really good one.
Okay, how about your next one?
Yeah, so my second one is kind of like, it's also what they would call a management style game, but I certainly wouldn't call it cozy, even though the animation style is very, very cute. It's called Cult of the Lamb. And in Cult of the Lamb, you're playing as a lamb. And as the game starts out, you're about to be sacrificed to the old gods. And after you die, you are greeted by this other god who is in chains, and he's called the One Who Waits. And he tells you that he is going to resurrect you and give you the opportunity to live a second life. The only thing you have to do is recruit followers for a cult in his name. So what you have to do is gather followers, keep them fed, keep them happy, go on crusades. Basically, you have to keep the loyalty level of your cult up while gaining power. This style of game is called a rogue light, so a little bit of gamer lingo there. I would say that if you're playing a rogue-like game, that's a game where sort of the opposite of a cozy game in that death is imminent. You can what's called permadeath. You can get that game over screen. So it's a little bit more risky. There's combat. Now, this is a rogue-light game, so it has some of those elements, but isn't quite as intense. So there's definitely combat. Your avatar can die, but the beauty of, because of the story, you constantly get resurrected. So, and this, unlike Spiritfarer again, is a game where co-op does impact the gameplay more. So you get abilities that sort of work with each other. When you're in combat, for example, you might have certain moves or attacks or defenses that depend on one another. Kind of like Nisreen was saying about The Last of Us, you can revive each other. So you can like donate some of your hearts to the other player if they've died in combat. So that's kind of fun. It's very like cartoony and very cute animation, which kind of goes against the tone of the game, in which there's like sacrifice and death and starvation and people are dying. So it's kind of fun that way for me, because it's a little bit, even though it's violent, it's kind of goofy because of how cute everybody is. So again, that might be something that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine, and it's really fun. You can also play like easy, medium, hard mode. So if you start to play the game on a certain level and it's a little too rough for you, you can always go to the easier mode, which is another thing that I like.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.